In the book Indistractable, Nir Eyal talks about something called a pre-commitment, making a commitment now so that it's easier for you to do something in the future. Almost a year ago, I made a pretty big pre-commitment to myself and to you all to keep myself accountable, supposedly. I released a video announcing that I was going to be writing a book. I had an idea for it, a no methodology guide to Obsidian. I had a name for it, Obsidian Playbook. I bought the domain. I had an outline. I even wrote 20,000 words for it. And then it didn't happen. Here's an update on what happened with that and why I'm writing a new book instead. There are a few reasons why I decided not to write the playbook anymore. The first is that it kind of started to feel like documentation rather than writing something new and fresh. I just kind of lost interest because it was a lot of like step-by-step instructions, and while that stuff is important, I just felt like I already do a lot of that on video, and what I really wanted to write was more on a conceptual level. Secondly, there are already a lot of resources for how to use Obsidian and even how to take notes. I just didn't feel the need to duplicate them. Just this year, my friend Jorge Arango's book, Julie Noted, was released, and it is what I'd recommend to most people who are starting out with digital note taking now, replacing how to take smart notes. I've interviewed him on this channel. I reviewed that book. I also am featured in it. It's a solid book, and honestly, I didn't feel like there was a lot that I could add to it. Thirdly, I just don't want to be too tied to a tool. I know most of the videos that I've made are about Obsidian, but I don't really get caught up in tool or brand loyalty. I'm always going to use the best tool for the job. Right now, that's Obsidian, and I love it. I love it more than I did when I started. But if there were something else that came out that fits my needs better, I would want to be free to pivot to that because I've been a note taker all my life. I was a note taker before Obsidian, and I'll be a note taker after it. So I didn't want to also pass on that reliance on a specific tool to everybody else. And lastly, I just had a lot going on last year, personally and professionally, and I just didn't feel like I could add another thing to my plate. So here's what I'm doing going forward. I still have those 20,000 words that I wrote towards the book. I just published it along with my notes. You can still look through them and they haven't been deleted or anything, so I can always go back to it, I guess, at some point. But honestly, at this point, I'm just ready to move on. Why I'm writing a new book instead? Well, when I actually was honest about it and I looked at the videos that I made and the presentations that I've given at conferences, even the notes that I've written, there's a theme, and it's not Obsidian. I do love Obsidian, but it's more like the way that I do things rather than the goal itself. And the theme that emerged was learning in public. Coincidentally, this was the thing that I was most excited about the previous book, because I wanted to write the entire book in public. And that idea really resonated with me. And I thought, if it resonates with me so much, why don't I just write a book about that bit? And that's exactly what I'm doing. This is something I've always been interested in all my life, and it is a passion that would exist regardless of the exact stack of tools that I happen to be using at that point. I feel strongly that I owe my career and my happiness to, among many things, learning in public. And also, I just learn in public a lot. I'm on social media. A lot of these YouTube videos are me learning in public with you, which is why I kind of wince a little bit when people call me an expert. I'm like, I'm learning this with you. A lot of these plugins, I'm just discovering as well. And I also do live streams for work. I do presentation talks. There's a whole lot of my life that I'm just putting out there while I'm in the process of learning. And I can't wait to share it with you. So the new book is called Doing It in Public. I mentioned it in a few videos already, but it's going to be about why you should learn in public, what learning in public even means, how to swallow your nerves when you're starting to learn in public and just do it anyway, but also a concrete set of steps and tips that you can use if you also want to be a public learner. And I also want to talk about those times when maybe you shouldn't learn in public. So let's go through my setup for the book now. So this is an Obsidian vault where I'm keeping my book, or at least what I've written for it already. This is also where I'm putting the outline. Now, the first thing that I did was to come up with this outline, and the way that I did that was I went through my existing notes and kind of just pieced these things together. Now, I did decide to create an entirely separate vault, and that's because I wanted to be able to publish this part of the vault freely. And I mean, there are ways to do it, but I just thought it was going to be a little bit messy. And then in the compilation of the entire book later, I thought that it might just be a little too complicated to have these other extraneous notes. It's also the whole hyperlinking thing. I think that that works really well when something is like, my notes, like I publish them online. But when it's a book, hyperlinks don't really work. So I decided that creating a separate vault would be the way to go. So right now I've got an outline. I have gotten some feedback on it already. And what isn't obvious is that many of these bullet points are already parts of notes or notes in themselves in my main vault. So I actually have a lot of this written already. I just kind of have to put it together. A lot of the work for creating this outline was looking through what I've already got, which is a really good sign that I'm already passionate about this topic. So here's what I've got so far. The first chapter is going to be about the case for doing it in public, basically why you should do it and the things that I've been able to achieve because of it. The next chapter will be all about mindset, principles for learning in public that are more like overarching kind of ideas that you should keep in mind. And then we're going to get started with the more practical stuff. Like if you're starting to learn in public now, what is the single easiest thing that you can do right now without too much setup or worrying about frameworks? And then the next chapter is going to build on that, talking about how to systematize that. I want to talk about like version control and putting things on GitHub and also turning notes into a personal knowledge management system. Obviously, I'm a strong proponent of that, but also things like having a public change log, which I do have. It's kind of more about applying rigor around these public learning practices. And then the next step is kind of experimenting a little bit more with different formats and longer formats too, building on the micro learnings from previous chapters and turning that into something that is more focused towards what people want based on the feedback that you've gotten and also more valuable. And I also want to talk about what to do when no one's watching and how to get people to watch or read your stuff. And then I want to talk about having some sort of learning pipeline. In tech, we have something called a CI/CD pipeline, continuous integration or continuous delivery. Sometimes it's called continuous improvement as well. The idea is that this process is never done. And the way that you make it sustainable, basically, is to automate as much of the process as you can. And while you can't automate all parts of the learning, there is still going to be a part that you obviously have to do yourself, otherwise, it's not you learning. There are parts of the publication process and also the parts of the consumption process that you can definitely automate. And then I want to talk about building a community. So I think that this is one of the best parts about being on YouTube is that it's not just about YouTube, it's about the PKM community, the Obsidian community, and my own communities that I've created like on Mastodon and on Discord. The value of having these smaller groups and cultivating a culture of ritual dissent is going to be something I'm talking about here. Learning in public isn't without its obstacles. So in chapter 8, I want to talk about some of the things that I've seen are pitfalls along the way. And I want to talk about when there's such a thing as too much feedback. How do you handle that? How do you set boundaries? What happens when you're like me, where I have this like personal stuff and then I have like professional stuff that I do for my day job? Do they mix? Do I try to mix them? Do I steer into it, or do I keep those separating those distinctions? I'll talk a little bit about when to learn in private because I don't think that everything should be public, but how do you decide what you keep for yourself and what you share with others, and what things are going to help you determine whether something should be public or private. And I'm going to end with a conclusion, which is the cost of not doing it in public. What else could be happening? What you could do if you weren't learning in public? What would the opportunity cost of that be? So that's the outline so far. Now let's talk a little bit about the writing. As you can see, I am doing quite a bit of this in Obsidian, and specifically, I'm using the long-form plugin. This is the first time I'm doing it. I mean, I don't really have enough experience to really talk about it yet. As you can see, I just have one scene, and that's the introduction, which, by the way, is actually coming along quite nicely. So this is already pretty much done. I just have to add a little bit here about my personal story of learning in public, and this is the first draft of the introduction. So I've been using long form for that. I have also started from scratch with the plugins, and so I only have these 5 plugins installed actually. Long form outliner because I was using the bullet points for the outline, templater because I want to be able to apply a chapter template each time, and then Brat because I wanted to install my version of the Vault changelog plugin, just because I wanted to be able to communicate what's new. So I have something to say that might surprise you. I know it surprised me. And it's also partially why I pivoted away from the purely Obsidian focused book. I started to run up against the limits, or not really the limits, but the limitations of Obsidian. And I found that it wasn't so great for actually writing long form content. Outlines were fine, linking was fine, fantastic for idea generation. When it came to actually writing, I kind of struggled, especially when I was getting into more conceptual, creative things rather than just do this and like a step by step sequence of events kind of thing. So I've actually been using another tool for writing, and I'm not sure yet. I mean, I might go back to Obsidian. I kind of use them both. And that other tool is IA Writer. IA Writer is another Markdown based tool. It is not open source, and the licensing model is also kind of expensive compared to Obsidian because you have to buy the individual licenses for different devices separately. But it is just really nice for writing. So this is what it looks like, and when I hide the pane here, it's just so clean. So I wrote the whole first part, the introduction, entirely in IA Writer. There's just something about it that helps me focus just on writing. It's nowhere near as fully featured as Obsidian. I could never switch to it entirely. But for writing, when I don't want to do really complex things, I just need to zone out and write, this is actually pretty good. I even like that you can switch to what's called focus mode, so only the paragraph or sentence, you can set this in the settings, that you're working on is kind of highlighted, and I really like that too. There are a lot of cool things about it. I don't feel like I can really adequately compare it to Obsidian yet. I'm working on it, and I'm sure that I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but I'm really enjoying it. It's fast, it's simple, it does what I want it to do, and with none of the distractions that right now Obsidian has for me with all my complex workflows and all of the plugins that I'm trying out. So let's talk about how I'm doing this in public. First, the actual publishing part. I did a video a few weeks back about something called Quartz, which is a static site generator that happens to be excellently suited for Obsidian. Now, one of the cool things is that despite the fact that I'm using both Obsidian and IA Writer, they're using the same bunch of files, which means that it doesn't really matter what I use it for. It works just as well with files that I've modified using IA Writer. And if you'd like to check that out, then look at this video where I go through the entire process of setting that up. But in a nutshell, I am using Obsidian and IA Writer to actually create the notes, and then I'm using Quartz to do the static site generation that's getting hosted on GitHub Pages. So this is what all that looks like. This is my Quartz site of the same things that I just showed you on Obsidian and IA Writer. So I've got the index right here, which is the entire outline, and then the introduction as well. This is the main way that I'm going to be showing people where I'm at in the writing process. So there are two ways that you can give me feedback on this or, just cheer me on. The first is through GitHub. If you are already familiar with raising issues on GitHub, you can go ahead and raise an issue on the repository, the Git repository for my book itself. However, for most people, I think the best way to do it would be to join my Discord server. I've had a Discord server for a while. Until very recently, it was only for Patreons, but I'm opening that up so that I can discuss the book with a wider community. So come over and join it. The link will be in the description below, and there will be a book doing it in public section here where we're going to be discussing and have been discussing. I've gotten some great feedback from some really cool people. I still love the idea of pre-commitments, but obviously they don't always work. And you know what? That just means it wasn't the right idea or it wasn't the right time. And in the end, I did learn something that for me, it was both. And that's the learning in public. I'm looking forward to steering into the new book and to sharing even more of how I'm learning with you all. If you'd like to learn with me and then kind of peer over my shoulder, then check out the links in the description below to be able to see new chapters as they come. Also, next month on March 22 to 23, I'm going to be at something called the PKM Summit. It is a PKM conference and is going to be in Utrecht in the Netherlands. You may recognize some of the speakers, including me. I don't actually know what I'm going to be speaking about yet, but I'm toying with the idea of letting everyone watch as I record a video for this channel. So really showing my process, warts and all. I'm so excited to meet other PKM nerds, especially those that I've been following for what must be years now. I really can't tell you how excited I am to meet all PKM nerds of all kinds from all places. Check out the link below to sign up and let me know if there's anything in particular that you'd like me to make a video about live. Thanks for watching. Utrecht is echt mooi en ik kan niet wachten om iedereen te ontmoeten.